afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Budget and Finance Committee for the City of Franklin. It is February the 12th. We'll begin the meeting with a call to order. I'll do this with a roll call vote. Alderman Peterson, how do you vote?
Here.
There you go. Alderman Caesar, how do you vote?
I'm here, Clay.
And Alderman Brown, how do you vote?
Smart.
And the mayor and the chairman. Mayor's not here and the chairman is here. Matt Brown will be late. Let's go to setting the agenda. If there's any changes to the agenda, we'll entertain a motion now. If not, I'll entertain a motion of approval to approve the agenda as submitted. Any changes to the agenda?
Motion to approve as submitted.
Second.
Proper motions are and seconded. Alderman Peterson, how do you vote?
Yes.
You're not gonna take a chance on, yeah, turn it. There you
Yes.
go.
Oh, it
There
worked
you
that
go.
time perfectly.
Alderman Peterson, you voted yes. Alderman Caesar, how do you vote?
Yes, sir.
And the chair votes yes also on that. This is the beginning of all our department people making their presentations. I'm going to begin. Mr. Stuckey, are you ready for your portion of this?
May I
meeting?
interrupt? Do you mind doing the minutes, or vote on the minutes
Okay.
before we go into
yeah.
that, please? Okay, thank you.
Let's entertain. Anybody want to change the minutes? If not, we'll entertain a motion as they are written.
I move to approve the minutes as written.
Second.
Proper motion is second. Alderman Peterson, how do you vote?
Yes.
Alderman Caesar, how do you vote?
Yes.
The chair votes yes on that also. Okay. Mr. Stuckey, you're up.
Thank you. I have just some brief comments. You mentioned it as well. We are into the phase of our budget process where departments will come before you over the next several meetings. This evening or this afternoon, we have our public safety departments, police and fire. They represent nearly half of our general fund in terms of funding and both in terms of dollars, but also in terms of our staffing. And there's no more important function we provide than providing for the safety of our citizens, safety of our visitors, and our community overall. And what the departmental presentations give you an opportunity to do is hear the voice of the departments in terms of how they're serving, what they're proud of, where they may need help, what the needs are, not just in the year ahead, but beyond, and to reflect on those and share those with you as we work together to make important budget decisions for fiscal 27. So that's the charge that's before us, is to understand and hear where departments are coming from, hear their voice in this process, and make sure it helps instruct what we do in terms of bringing the best budget forward that we can to serve the community. So with that, I'll turn it over to Chief Faulkner and the police department team.
Good afternoon.
It sounded a little strange, so hold on a second. Is that good? It's awfully loud. I think she went to get, do you hear the echo? Yeah. Stand by, please. What did you say?
Speak into the mic.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
That's good.
That sounds better. Thank you. All right. I want to personally thank you all, Mr. Stuckey, and all the other city people who are here today. I'm honored to represent the dedicated men and women of the Franklin Police Department. With me at the table here is Deputy Chief Scott Butler, Deputy Chief J.P. Taylor, and from our Physical Affairs Unit, Amy Gossett. Submitted to you today is a typical format that, at least it's typical to me, that I've seen each year. You will see our calls for service for years 2021 through 2025, our performance measures for the past 5 years, our previous and proposed organizational chart that represents our current structure and our flow of business operations. We have a proposed organizational chart. I don't know whether Michael's going to show it or not. I thought maybe he was. It better shows and aligns with our business operations. I think it will better strategically allow us to do correct forecasting and appropriate resource allocations. That really represents how we operate right now. And I think it makes much more sense to our employees, and I know it does to me. And hopefully, we have a very new physical affairs manager, and I think it'll be more helpful to her as well. You should also see our base budget request, our staffing by position, and finally, our budget for the various functions of the police department. Michael and I were trying to compare to make sure we had the correct order. Okay, there's a good picture. I'd like to give you just a quick snapshot of last year regarding the work of the Franklin Police Department. Officers responded to 74,035 incidents last year. That's almost 10,000 more calls than the previous year. They made 1,366 arrests. The top offenses were assault, drug and narcotics violations, and impaired driving. During the Thanksgiving and Christmas holidays, the Franklin Police Department Flex Team worked the Not in Our Mall, and that's a couple of the individuals that work there at Cool Springs Galleria. This initiative is to prevent criminal activity in our area retail venues. We want people to be able to come to Franklin, and those who live in Franklin, and shop safely. And many people tell me they like seeing the officers out there. They like seeing the signs that we put up to sort of give criminals an idea that if that's where you're coming, you better change your mind. The Flex Team made 76 arrests during just that brief holiday period and recovered more than $16,000 worth of stolen merchandise and $4,200 in stolen cash. They made 21 shoplifting arrests. They arrested 14 wanted individuals. They made 34 drug-related arrests and recovered 6 stolen guns. Now, officers worked 3,427 extra jobs and 32 special events last year, including the top 4, which of course are Pilgrimage, Pumpkin Fest, the Main Street Festival, and Dickens of a Christmas. And you can see some of that in the pictures, especially of the bobbies up in the right-hand corner. This number equaled 14,534 extra hours that they worked over and above their regular shifts. These events require significant planning and staffing for them to be successful and safe. We analyze each one both tactically, and we do a thorough intelligence network workup. And I want you to know that there's an emphasis that we give to these events. We give them our full attention. You could say that Franklin Police Department has a front row seat in just about everything that happens in our city. Weekends, holidays, evenings, officers work hard to keep our city safe. We'll never stop striving to be a professional law enforcement agency. We believe the public that we serve deserves nothing less than our best. We continue to maintain both our state and our international accreditation. The program enhancements listed in this document that you have before you were generated from the following sources: suggestions from department employees, and a review of department resources and best practices. The increases represented are due to fuel cost, vehicle maintenance and repairs, overtime, especially for event staffing, an allowance for inflation, especially for our quartermaster budget for uniforms and equipment, a budget regarding equipment replacement. It also increases related to ammunition. Ammunition's gone up, believe it or not. Training and professional development, utilities, and printer and technology maintenance. I'm presenting 12 program enhancements. I carefully analyzed our needs. I narrowed the requests down to the ones that would replace outdated equipment, provide new equipment and technology, enhance officer safety, and the need for new positions to better serve a growing city. Now, I can get into the program enhancements. One of my favorite pictures there, we swore in one of the largest police officer classes in many years at the Franklin Police Department, and all of those officers are doing quite well. We're proud of them. So the first program enhancement, number one, is to hire 3 additional police officers, to have 3 police officer positions added to our budget. As I mentioned, the number of calls for service and demands on our officers increases each year. In fact, I said we had 10,000 more incidents last year than the year before. The demand for officers to work extra jobs and special events continues to increase. As the city's population and geographic area grows, plus the number of new businesses increase, the demand for law enforcement services will continue to rise. It is imperative, in my opinion, that the police department keeps pace with this growth. And that is program enhancement number 1. Number 2, a training sergeant, which is also a new position. Training has often been cited as one of the most important responsibilities in any law enforcement agency. The amount of information an officer must amass daily is mind-boggling. There are new laws, general orders, announcements, requests from the public to do extra patrols, new rules and regulations, intelligence reports, legal bulletins, and more. The law enforcement profession is constantly changing. Well-trained officers are better prepared to act decisively and correctly in a broad array of circumstances. There are liability issues when you do not have well-trained police officers. This request is for a new sergeant. It will be a position added to our training unit. The responsibilities would include basic, in-service, and remedial training. And this would be in regards to defensive tactics, firearms, non-lethal weapons, current written directives and the laws covering these topics, conducting scenario-based training, which our officers really like. And they also really like the virtual reality training that we've added. And evaluating officer performance in the training environment while meeting all Tennessee post-commission requirements. And that is program enhancement number 2. Number 3. My sidekick over there, Michael. Well, when you have additional officers, you need equipment. And so next up is portable radios for additional police officers. I double-checked with our IT people, and we don't have enough right now to cover the ones that we want to hire. So additional portable radios are required for officers who will be hired this year. This is a necessity. It is required for their safety and is mandatory for our accreditation standards. They must always have an alternate means of communications, especially when an officer is away from their vehicle. That's program enhancement number 3. Number 4, new SWAT communication sets. There are 16 men, they're all men, who make up the Franklin Police Department SWAT team. They operate in a high-risk environment all the time. They're called out. Reliable communications is essential for their safety and for the public that they protect. The current headsets that they use have frayed wiring and they're unreliable. I'm requesting that they be replaced with an updated system that provides digital noise cancellation, a secure push-to-talk integration, and improved radio compatibility. The goal is to ensure that every transmission is clearly heard the first time. There's no room for error. I know you probably see those guys up on rooftops during special events. The first time we did that, I was a little worried about it. I didn't know how the public would receive it. And I ran into a man at one of the stores on Main Street, and he said, "Aren't you Chief Faulkner?" And I said, "Maybe." "Why?" He said, "I saw your men up on the roof," and I thought, uh-oh. And he said, "Thank you. Thank you. You made my family feel safe." And that's what's important. All right. Oh, I'm sorry, I skipped ahead. Number 5. a new evidence tech. This is a new position. We currently just have one. It's a critical part also of our accreditation standards. The property and evidence function is responsible for the security and control of seized, recovered, and evidentiary property, as well as abandoned, lost, and found property. They're responsible for helping to guarantee successful prosecution at criminal trials. They must facilitate the timely return of property to the owners. And they are key to establishing the Franklin Police Department's reputation as a trusted and honest agency. As I said, we currently only have one evidence tech for the evidence function. The responsibilities and workload have increased year over year to include receiving, logging, documenting, storing, and securing all found property or evidence related to a crime, an arrest, or a search warrant. As I stated, this function is a major part of our accreditation standards and best law enforcement practices, which requires that all evidence or found property must be tracked and regularly inventoried and documented. This job is responsible for completing reports for the TBI and testifying in court regarding the chain of evidence in criminal cases. So it's very critical to our department and our officers that investigate crime. Okay, now number 6. This is for some new crime scene tech equipment. This is something new that we've added to the police department. It's made up of patrol officers. There's 2 on each shift. And so that makes a total of 6. They are assigned to patrol, but they also possess the expertise to assist the detectives with professional forensic support and evidence collection. To maintain investigative excellence, this request will replace some outdated camera systems, lighting kits, tripods, and other tools necessary for accurate and consistent evidence documentation. So crime scene tech equipment for 6 officers. Number 7, a new traffic computer. Again, I also worked with our IT people on this. This is a high-performance computer that we're requesting to be used by our current crash reconstruction officers and their software in our traffic unit. Currently, the traffic investigators use a 6-year-old laptop. It's lacking the capacity to process the images and the scans for fatal and near-fatal crash scenes. And just to give you an idea of the work, last year there were 1,843 property damage crashes. There were 321 which were crashes with injury, and unfortunately 2 fatality crashes. So this computer that they have, this laptop that's outdated, is pretty much useless, and we'd like to replace it with one. And again, I had IT look at what they were requesting to see if it was compatible with the software. Okay, number 8. This is an urban SDK program for the traffic unit. Now you're going to think, what the heck is that? Well, when the public and aldermen request information on speeding in certain areas of the city, this is a traffic management software system that will provide comprehensive traffic volume, speed, congestion, and collision data for every roadway in our area. Traffic supervisors often receive complaints from the public regarding different roadways in Franklin. Instead of waiting for a speed study where we have to drag a wheeled computer out there to sort of watch people as they come by and measure their speed, and it takes a while. This would provide quick feedback so traffic enforcement can be timely, effective, and efficient. It can save a lot of time. All right, number 9. I'm almost there. This one increase officer extra duty pay. And this is for these events, as noted in the picture there. The extra duty pay for police officers is not increased in 4 years. This request is to raise the current pay for police officers and incident commanders by $10 an hour. Now, we're working to refine the numbers that we've submitted here, so just know that. We're working to refine that. The number of events requiring the presence of our police officers continues to grow. As I stated before, they worked 14,534 hours last year. And the number of attendees, I'm certainly sure that if you've gone to any of these, you know the crowds that we attract here in Franklin, and that's a very good thing. Pedestrian and vehicular traffic must be managed and protected. There are intersections to be closed and monitored for safety, and every event has a detailed operations plan. This is hard work in all kinds of weather, on their days off, on holidays, and yet they perform with dedication and professionalism. Number 10. This is
Just real quick, on those special detail or extra detail costs, those are borne by the event organizers. Just so you all know, that is not a cost that's passed on to our citizens. That's something we allocate to those organizers. They pay that, and this is a dynamic where we're trying to make sure we make it attractive enough that we can adequately staff it. If we don't, sometimes then we end up having to work through folks that are on shift and figure out how to get coverage, and that's challenging from a staffing standpoint. And it also, there's a financial dynamic there as well. So this just gets us, and we're still working through the specifics on how to exactly do this, but this will get us in a place where it makes it an easier call, hopefully, for officers to step up and provide that extra service.
Yes, sir.
You sure?
Well, do you pay each individual person the same amount, or do you pay according to their rank or?
The officers working the event make the same amount. The incident commanders make a little bit more,
Little bit
about
more.
$10 more, yeah.
Okay.
Because they have a lot more responsibility, and they put in a lot of hours, and that's our go-to if something happens. Yes, sir.
My question is more about the point Eric brought up. Well, we're looking as a program enhancement to increase the duty pay. Does that essentially trickle through to the event organizer? And so the reason you're asking us
It
is so that
does.
we agree that it's a fair and reasonable
Yeah.
rate to pass on to the event organizer?
Exactly.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
I appreciate your questions, and thank you, Mr. Stuckey. If we're ready, number 10 is a drone box. Drones are an incredible law enforcement asset, particularly when officers are searching for a missing child or an endangered adult. This enhancement would provide drone storage, rapid deployment, and a charging station that would be installed in a patrol vehicle. This would keep our current drone in a constant state of readiness 24/7. So have an immediate response and ready to go. We've used this a number of times looking for somebody along the Harpeth River. You may have seen our new program we have where we have asked or allowed people to register if they have a child that has Down syndrome or autism, or if there's someone with dementia or Alzheimer's. Officers will have immediate information about that, but also if they're missing, if they're wandering around, people are trying to find them, we could use the drone. They're an amazing tool. So this is a box to keep one out on the field, keep it charged and ready to go. Won't have to go back to the station to get it. Number 11. This is to replace the negotiations vehicle for our negotiations team. The vehicle they currently have is 18 years old, has very high mileage, and increasing maintenance concerns. It's a Ford pickup truck with a repurposed trailer. It's a little bit on the tacky side, but they use it well. There's even a lack of climate control in it, and it has electrical shortfalls. A self-contained, updated vehicle would improve operational readiness, communications reliability, and ensure we provide the highest level of professional police service during critical incidents. That's number 11. And the last one,
What would you do with the vehicle that you would keep it, would you? The vehicle that you're currently
Would you like to
using?
have it? I will give it to you. No, probably not, since it's so outdated and high mileage.
Okay.
We'd give it back to Fleet.
And
Yeah,
then,
we
yeah,
could
then we put it through
maybe-
auction for,
I doubt it.
property vehicles we no longer need.
The last one is Sigma Tactical Wellness, which is, well, I'll explain what it is. I think most people recognize that law enforcement is a stressful profession. There are continuous high demands on officers, both physically and mentally. In the last 3 years, we've had 3 officers suffer cardiac events. Unfortunately, one of these was a fatal heart attack. Police Officer 2, Jeff Carson. The American Heart Association says that an average age of a heart patient is 65. For police, the average age is 49. The average life expectancy is 79 in America. For law enforcement, is 57. I'm requesting to implement a proactive, holistic program to assist our officers maintain their wellness and quality of life. This program, recommended here, provides a number of components, including a physical evaluation of our personnel, nutritional information, consultation with a health and performance expert, an extensive personalized data report of their health status. This would be an amazing opportunity to improve the wellness of our officers, both now and into the future. So maybe we get additional longevity out of them. And that concludes my program enhancements, unless you have questions on those.
Any questions?
Yes, sir.
No.
I have
Oh,
a
do
question,
you?
yes, sir, Chair.
Go
I'm
right
sorry.
ahead.
Mr. Barnhill, appreciate the opportunity. I'm guessing, as I've looked through today's documents, that there'll be a price list for these items, or are we gonna, I didn't get all the way to the bottom.
I hope they're on the PERs.
I think you've got one.
Are they-
Each one broken down.
I didn't see it.
So in,
There we go.
yeah, in your packets on Civic Clerk, you have a summary page on top of all of the detail sheets.
That's it.
And in the slide, in the presentation, it's slides 10 and 11 that give just the summary of the numbers.
I'm sorry, I thought you could see that.
No, I was reading in the other document, the FY '27 budget, when, when you were on this page. But I appreciate this, and I guess the item number 9, the the officer extra duty pay, that 302 is not really a budget enhancement of sorts, is it?
It's really going to be costs we allocate out to event organizers, spread out over the whole year and the wide variety of events. We all think of the large events, but there are plenty of smaller onesie, twosie type assignments that also will bear those costs out. So this really is an additional cost. We'll get the revenue in to offset it, is essentially the way to think about it. We'll have to budget for it, but the revenue to offset it should come in. And, we pay officers directly through our payroll for that extra duty work.
And I understand. I just, as we're thinking about it in fairness to the police force, they're not really asking for 1.5 here, because 300 of it is gonna be balanced, right?
Correct. Yeah,
Um,
that's fair.
I think there's 2 questions, Chief, and I don't know if this completes your entire presentation.
Well, I have drug fund.
Well, this is different than that. First off, you guys did an exceptional job this year and continue to fight to keep our city not only a great place to live, but a safe place to live. And I'm curious about the increase based on the numbers that you shared at the very beginning, going from previously in the 60s to over 74,000 calls for service this year, a 10,000
10,000
call
more.
increase, which is about 15%, which is more than our population grew. Is there something that we should be cognizant of that we could be doing differently? I mean, calls for service are good and they're bad. It means that somebody's identified something and we're going out to hopefully prevent the crime. Beyond these number 12 items, are there things that we can do to maybe reduce that 15% growth in calls for service?
I don't really know how you would do that. I mean, the calls are a wide variety. Anything from a welfare check to a psychological emergency to a traffic accident. But it could also be just someone who is reaching out to the police department for advice. I often hear, and it's a civil situation, which we're not attorneys, but all of our officers keep a checklist of available services for, maybe it's a child exchange question, it's a part of a domestic violence situation where maybe they have a question about an order of protection. So, I mean, these are just kind of daily questions and answers. Some of them are handled by telephone. So I don't really know how we would reduce that. We try to reduce it by increasing our patrols and our community outreach, but sometimes that generates more calls because, well, while I've got you here, I need a report on this, or I need some advice on that, and the officer will document it. So-
The other thing I would highlight for you is that's an activity count. Those are calls for service where we help. When you look at actual offenses, so your most serious crimes, we actually saw a decrease from 24 to 25, I think around 14%. So I want to make sure no one
Well,
confuses
no, I think
the
that's
increased
very-
activity because of a growing community and an active police department that engages the community, from there being any increase in negative or criminal activity. That's actually declined pretty significantly year to year. Now, that's always going to fluctuate some, but we take what comes our way, whether that's calls for service or more serious elements of that call for service that result in us taking the enforcement activities we need to take. But just wanted to make sure we didn't confuse calls for service with criminal activity.
No, exactly the context I was
Yep.
looking for.
Yeah.
Thank you, Chief and Eric, for providing that clarity.
Many
And-
of these calls are like what we call a 1043 speak to an officer, and they just want advice. And so it's not a crime, but it may be an issue where they disagree with a neighbor. I mean, all the things that Mr. Stuckey said, and then some. We give a lot of advice.
And this is a learning experience for me. My mind immediately went to criminal activity when I saw the increase in calls, and that was incorrect.
No, you
So-
can see from the benchmarks and the crime stats, this is a very low crime area. And thank you. We're going to do everything we can to keep it that way.
That's what I hope the message is loud and clear, not only in this room, but to the bad people out there wanting to do bad things.
sure.
The other questions I have, I suppose we can talk about as we go through, with one exception, and I think this is something I know the answer to, but I want you to have a chance to respond. The portable radios, absolutely necessary for us to maintain communication for the folks, men and women who are running toward the danger. These portable radios, if I remember correctly, from Leadership Franklin, when you and I were in it 15, 16 years ago, and still today, there is collaboration with our radio systems communicating with Williams County Sheriff's Department.
Oh, gosh, yeah. These radios are loaded.
Yeah.
We could talk to just about anybody. Mutual aid, I mean, if Metro comes up here, a lot of times Air One will fly over. Our state partners, THP, we work very closely with them, especially on the interstate. So yes, we can communicate. That's why they're so expensive.
So one of the things we did was consolidate our radio system collectively with City of Franklin, Williamson County, and Brentwood. And so that's created the county system, but that county system is also the same system Metro uses.
Yes.
So essentially, we back each other up.
Yep.
We essentially have created a Middle Tennessee public safety radio system by doing that. And it's a partnership I think we're all very proud of because it's a better, more robust system, and it also provides really strong continuity of service, if you will, throughout our region. We've also had the other cities within Williamson County join in that system, so they may not be part of the three that are the owners of the system, but they are users of the system when you look at Spring Hill, Nolensville, et cetera. So that's a really important component that we've brought unity to that component. One of the things Franklin did around that same time is we consolidated our dispatch function with Williamson County so that we have a larger, broader array of services, a better career path for public safety communicators because it is a larger operation, and we think that has served us well in that capacity as well.
So when did we do that? When we?
10, 12 years
At
ago,
least,
something like that?
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, the radio system.
Let me ask you, the evidence technician, when you lock up the evidence room, how you do that? And something happens on the second shift or the third shift, your evidence technician probably does not work, but 8 hours a day, 10?
Yeah, we have a drop. The
Okay.
officer fills out all the information and places it in you got it.
I got it. I do now.
Yeah, it's very controlled and alarmed. And in fact, if the alarm goes off, it calls my phone. I know. So, yeah, it's that's part of the system is that it has to be very controlled. And officers are there 24/7. There's an evidence room. Have you been in our building?
I
You know,
have. It's been a
downstairs?
while.
Okay. So they bag it and tag it and put it in a secured area. And then when she comes in the next morning, she goes directly there and then places it in the proper place and documents it on her end. We call it bag and tag.
Any questions, Matt? Okay. Mayor?
I have some questions about the Sigma Tactical Wellness. That doesn't seem like very much money to do all that lab work and screening that they're doing. Are there some add-ons to that?
That's the figure they gave us, Mayor. I'm glad you think it's not very much.
Particularly for 150 sworn officers?
It's good.
That's
I
a
mean,
good-
we could tell them, look, you need to go to your primary care, but they're not doing it. You know, so if we have them there and we have this going, as part of their in-service training, we'll get it done.
And a lot of this, well, I like the fact that you can get it done.
Yeah.
It is virtual, is that my understanding of some of it?
I think they'll also be on site,
Oh, great. I think that's a bargain.
especially for the nutritional education and so on, and just sort of look at their evaluation and go over it with them. Thank you, Mayor.
Any other questions?
The
Chief?
The drug
Drug
fund won't take very long. And again, this is a confidential fund, so I really don't say a lot about it, other than it is established by state law for law enforcement agencies to set up a special revenue account for confidential drug investigations. Revenue is generated from drug offense fines, any cash forfeited through the court system where the judge will award the drug fund a certain amount of money, and the sale of forfeited property from illegal drugs. That's where the money comes from. There are very strict guidelines for the use of these funds, and we follow them to the letter. And we're keeping the budget status quo. Okay? All right.
Can I add one more thing? It's not on the drug fund. I think it's important for you all to hear this, and we talked a little bit about it on Tuesday night. We have seen some really good progress in our recruitment of folks to serve in the police department. Chief can correct me if my numbers are wrong here, but it's somewhere in the neighborhood, this last recruitment that we did, around over 200, 208, I think
Yes,
folks
and
came through the system
they did.
wanting to apply, completing applications to serve as officers. From that list, we go through a pretty extensive review. There's a physical test that they are up to the challenges they need to meet those standards. There's testing, there's interviews, all those things. And from that, we have a cert list of about 40, I think, right now.
We do.
And we've extended offers to 10
Yes.
to fill our overfills and our vacant positions. So I just want to say thank you to the board for their support. We stepped up in terms of being more aggressive in where we were in pay and how we do this. Our team and the police department and the communication side especially have been, I think, more out there in terms of talking about the work and humanizing the work that we do and seeing the value that folks can have in serving in this way. And so I think all of that adds up. It's a team effort in a lot of different facets to help it happen, but that success is real, and we weren't seeing those numbers a few years ago. And the last two recruitments have been very strong. And I think all of it matters. There's a lot of facets to it, but the foundation of it is being highly competitive on the salary and the quality work environment and the support in this community for law enforcement professionals really makes a difference, and it makes it a very attractive place. And we have people coming from all over the region and all over the country with an interest in working and serving here.
So
Yes,
are they currently working for another police department, or is it just varied?
The 10 that we have right now that we're doing backgrounds on and further testing are all lateral officers. That means they're post-certified either in the state of Tennessee or another state.
Okay.
And I often ask them, why did you decide, what attracted you, to the Franklin Police Department? They like the fact that we meet high standards. They like the fact that we're an accredited agency. They know that our policies are going to be state-of-the-art. They have seen our department. They've talked to our officers out in the field when they visited Franklin for special events. Maybe they have relatives in the area, and they've said, wow, this is a beautiful, beautiful place to live, and the quality of life is so wonderful. We all know that, but it's good to hear that from someone who's new. I'm sorry, did you have another question?
I was just going to underscore the compensation increase, certainly, I'm sure,
Yes.
contributed, but the culture that you've created there is also a contributing factor. And it's not just you, Chief, it's the gentleman to the left and the right of you.
No, they're not. Don't tell me that. They had nothing to do with it.
It's just you, Chief, it's
Yeah.
not the other. No, but I think to the mayor's point on the Sigma Wellness thing, at some point, money becomes money and it becomes somewhat of a hygiene factor, and you look for external motivators to bring people in and keep them. And while we all probably acknowledge that the stressors that you and your men and women are under every day are significant in the role that they do, maintaining health and wellness is something that is critical right now, and I'm excited to learn more about the Sigma Wellness Program, and maybe even as you talk about this, like a case study of what that would look like for a man or a woman who's going to participate, and how that could be, maybe a lifestyle changer for somebody, or at least a maintainer for somebody that has been saddled with this career. Saddle's probably not the right word, but who has chosen this career with a significant life expectancy deficit over most Americans. And if this can help us move those number of years that all of those who wear the badge are able to walk on this earth, then let's look at investing in that and seeing it become a.
It's important, and I think it's certainly myself, I like looking at before and after. And I think if we can see when the presentation is given to them, this is your status, your physical status, here's some recommendations, and then the next year we look at how their health improved and how their quality of life improved. I think that's important. But, we already have things in place for, hopefully, for the mental piece. We have someone on staff that does private one-on-ones with our officers. We also have a peer support program and a chaplain program. That's so important because one officer who we have given a conditional offer is from another state. And he said that one of the things that he knew about was the fact that we had that going on. The agency he's coming from, they've had 3 officers commit suicide. Most recently was a sergeant. And he said the agency didn't handle it well. And he said, I'm leaving, I'm coming here. So we know that it's important to them, it's important to me. And we want to do all we can to make sure that, first of all, they go home every night to their families, but that when they show up at work, they're good to go. And so I can conclude if you'd like me to. I know the fire department's about ready to hose me down.
Mayor?
Oh, excuse me.
I have one more question since we're talking about drugs. Anecdotally, can you share with us whether there's been a decrease in overdose deaths? And also, has there been a decrease in the use of Narcan or increased use?
Well, all of our officers carry Narcan, and I think last year we had something like 35 overdoses. I think that's a significant decrease. So I don't know what to attribute that to. Maybe it's, I don't know. I don't know yet.
Well, in other states like Oklahoma is number 1 in the country
Yeah.
as far as reduction, I think, and they've attributed a lot of theirs to availability of Narcan. And West Virginia similarly, they've had some have a unique rapid response team that reaches out to people when they're not dope sick and tries to get them into treatment. Apparently,
Yes.
had a lot of success there.
Thank you. All right, in conclusion, the Franklin Police Department is well respected for its training, policies, procedures, selection of officers, and meeting stringent standards for both an internationally and state accreditation. We enjoy a very low crime rate and an amazing quality of life, and we intend to keep it that way. We have a reputation for professionalism and a dedication to our duty to the city. My vision for the near future of the Franklin Police Department has never faltered. It is to continue to plan and train for any and all crime trends that are ahead of us. Oh, okay, good. I'm trying to make sure he's got the right. I am extremely proud of this department, and I hope you are as well. Franklin is a great American city. As our city continues to grow, your police department must keep up with that growth. Thank you for your attention and continued support, and this concludes our budget.
Thank you, Chief. Any questions? We appreciate it. Good
Thank you.
job. Thank you. Good information.
Thank you.
Chief Johnson, are you ready?
We are ready. We got Joanne. She'll be here in just a moment.
Okay.
But we can go ahead and get started.
There we go. All right,
Well, if you're ready, we're ready.
let's go.
Go.
All right, so appreciate your time and consideration of our budget that we're going to be presenting here tonight. I want to highlight some of the things that occurred over the last year. As always, we provide service through excellence with our core values of professionalism, integrity, and compassion. And that's how our department handles our interactions with our visitors and citizens of this community. If you'll notice, this year we had a little over a 2.5% increase in call volume. We totaled out last year with 11,711 calls for service. This also translates to an overall response time of 5 minutes and 23 seconds. Now, I would like to highlight that response time, because what we sustained this year was a 4% decrease in response times. And we contribute that to three things. You supported our preemption program last year in coordination with IT and engineering. Our AVL, which is a system within our CAD that will dispatch the closest unit to the call. And then three, the men and women getting out the door and getting on the apparatus and getting en route. Some of the other major achievements we had this year, we had Tire 6, Engine 1, and Engine 6 that arrived in 2025. And we're looking forward to the arrival of Ladder 5, Engine 4, and Engine 8 in March and December of 2027. One of the things that our personnel did was supported deployment to Texas with Tennessee Task Force 2. We went to Kirk County, Texas, and supported operations at Camp Mystic. So we appreciate your support in allowing our personnel to go support our neighbors.
How many deployed from here do you?
We had 2 from Franklin that deployed, but the entire task force was probably close to 24, 26, somewhere along there. One of the things that I also want to highlight is the number of training hours the men and women of the Franklin Fire Department do on an annual basis. This year, our personnel logged 58,950 hours of training throughout all divisions within the fire department. This represents a 1.5% increase over our 2024 hours. All right. Chief Cruz?
Yes, sir. A couple other things that we've done in the realm of training this year. Yes, ma'am. A few of the other things that we've done in the realm of training this year. Over the past 2 years, we started going down this road with Blue Card Command Systems. Blue Card is a product by a company called B-Shifter, and their most popular product educational tool is called Blue Card Command. It's a communications model that we've now taught 100% of our officer corps, where we all learn to kind of speak the same language, and it's a repeatable, teachable model of organizing the fire ground communications-wise. It doesn't particularly drive tactics that we use, but it gives us a lens to look at tactics and continue to follow best practices. So this year, again, we completed that. 100% of our officer corps are now certified Blue Card commanders, which allows us to be much safer and more efficient on the emergency scene. We'll continue with that as we make new officers and send them through the same Blue Card Command program training, as well as give all of our personnel orientation in Blue Card Command. So again, we're just getting on the same page with all of our department. Another few things that happened in training this year, we made some upgrades to our training facility. As most of you know, our burn building is now over 20 years old. It continues to serve us well, but that doesn't happen without maintenance and upgrades. So in particular, this year, we were able to redo the lining of the burn building. That's what allows us to burn and train inside the building, but not degrade the structural members of the building. We're also redoing our gas props, which provide realistic training for our firefighters. We're also excited that we ran another recruit academy this year. We have new recruits as well as our 5 interns who are successfully graduated and are now on the street. We've had a lot of success with our intern program, and we look forward to the future running another academy this year that will also include interns. As you know, our posting for firefighter just went out, and we're again posting for interns, lateral, and entry level, and we've had amazing response so far in the last couple weeks. I think we're up to around a couple hundred entries that we'll start to vet and dwindle down to invite to testing.
Thank you. Also, if you'll notice here, 67% of our annual call volume involves the medical side of things. And so in order to ensure that we're staying current with the best practices, we've instituted a FTO, Field Training Officer Program. This is where our seasoned paramedics help mentor and train our younger EMTs and AMTs to help them learn the protocols and how to care for the patients. In addition, we've expanded our EMS intern program to a leadership advisory team. This team is very instrumental in ensuring that we're staying up to date with best practices and ensuring that the strategic direction and success of all of our ALS program. This portion is normally done by Engineer Emily Nelms. She could not be here tonight. She's actually in training in Atlanta, Georgia. So I'll try to do this, do her justice on this. But we continue to have a great success with our behavioral health and wellness program. Our team does a really great job of supporting the members of our department. Our peer support team has not only served the Franklin firefighters, but some of our retirees, as well as Franklin police officers and outside first responders from other agencies. Our program also takes into consideration family members of our first responders, and we have programs that can help them get through circumstances as they arise. The clinical oversight for this program is phenomenal. Our clinician ensures that we have the best counselors and that the problem is matched with the counselor that can deal with it best. Each year, we have a focus on training when it comes to behavioral health. This year, in 2026, we're going to focus on suicide prevention and intervention. We recognize that the suicidal ideation for first responders across the country has increased, and we want to make sure that we provide educational materials to our personnel to give them an avenue in the event that they need to reach out and talk to someone. We're going to continue to partner with our local professionals to fight against this suicide in Franklin.
Good afternoon. Andy King, Fire Marshal. Want to spend the next couple of slides and talk about our inspection programs and our plan review process, which contributes to, we're part of the development team here for the city of Franklin. And so the first one is regarding inspections, and these numbers don't mean a whole lot unless we put it into context. And so I think I would point out first that the 2,544 inspections are a 16% increase over last year, which is pretty significant. And then I also want to point out that those numbers, if you see the difference between the 1833 and the 711, is that those are existing buildings. And so we spend almost 70% of our time on new construction, as you might imagine. We've been a growing community for many numbers of years, and our philosophy has been that we want to spend the time up front to get it right. When we get it right and you open it up, it's a much better chance of keeping it that way for a long time versus starting behind and having to go back and find a problem. So that's why you see the difference in those numbers. But I also want to point out that we have quite a few new inspections. We had a 19% increase in those existing inspections. And we can really attribute that to probably one thing, and it's a new online portal. It's called Inspection Reporting Online. And so all the businesses with alarms and sprinklers are now required to submit those. And then we're able to check those and prioritize them and then assign somebody out if they're not correcting it on their own, so that we're just being more efficient with the way that we're doing things, but also making sure that every year and every time we add a brand-new building in Franklin, that it's just not becoming a huge snowball that is out of control one day. So that's the philosophy and the principle of this one. Regarding plan reviews, we have operated in much the same way for almost the 20 years that I've been here, more than 20 years, which is really a single plan reviewer that does a majority of this work. And when you look at the types of plan reviews, this is the proactive piece. This is the part that happens before they put shovels in the ground. This is where it is most efficient to catch and find problems, and it's critical. And Vernon would be proud of me for talking about predictability. The fact is, we are very predictable, but right now we don't have much redundancy in our system. It's pretty lean and tight. And so with one reviewer doing this many reviews, if they go out on regular leave, which we count on, but if you have unanticipated leave, we still have the same deadlines, whether that's 20 working days or 10 working days. We still need to make sure we get it right, that we're contributing to all of these projects, and that process is seamless. And so this will come up later when we talk about some of our program enhancement requests. But I just wanted to point those things out to you. One last story that I was going to tell you briefly is that we had a fire last year that none of you probably heard about. It was in the Bowers Park office building. It's over on Crothers Parkway. It's a 6-story non-combustible building. Our inspector, our deputy fire marshal, had done an inspection about 2 or 3 weeks before, identified the fire alarm was not operating properly, a rolling fire shutter door that dropped down between the first floor and the second floor was not operating properly, and a couple other minor things. They had repaired those things, and he was actually going back to do an inspection that morning, and we had a fire at 6 a.m., which was a thermostat on the wall of the entrance to the office building. And so the alarm called us, the doors dropped, everything worked together as a system, and if we had not been on top of that, we could have had a different outcome. I hope we're not going to burn down a concrete building, but still, it could have affected businesses and other things. But it is a system. We feel like we're doing it really well and very proud of that system. Thank you.
All right, this is our current org chart. If we go to the next slide, you'll see our proposed org chart that's highlighted. The new positions are highlighted in yellow with the exception of fire logistics officer. That is a reclassification. And we'll get in more talking about the new positions in the PERs.
Good afternoon. We just want to point out that our fiscal year 27 projected increases in personnel, it's only going up by $2,556, and we're attributing that to, we've had 13 people leave since August of 2025, 9 of which retired from the department. Moving to operations, we're expecting about a $51,000 increase from FY26, and this is due to, or just staying in line with the adjustments with routine cost increases and ongoing operational needs. So we're pretty happy with those numbers this year. And I do have to give a shout out to Chris. He worked well with me on getting those numbers down this year. However, We are requesting with the general fund 19 enhancements with a little over $3 million and one enhancement from the facilities fund of $2.8 million. So at this time, I'd like to introduce or have Chief Cruz come back up to talk about our first PER.
Thank you again for allowing us some time this afternoon. Chief Johnston is strategically placed to kick me in the shin if I talk too long. And if there's a slide I'm going to do it, it's here. But I'm aware of that, so I'm going to try to rein it in a little bit. I want to first say thank you for this budget year that we're working through now, allowing us to do this district captain trial that we're about to talk about. We really learned a lot about our organization and what we could accomplish should we get this funded in perpetuity. So again, thank you so much for allowing us to get that done over the past year. Just a little bit of background to ensure that we're all on the same page. I'm a battalion chief. Each shift has one of those working every day. There's 3 of us. We work 24 hours a day, as you know all that. Underneath us, we have 3 captains spread across the shift, and we have multiple lieutenants. Captains do work at the multi-company station, so they've got 1 company, 2 companies there with them, and they're in charge of 1 to 2 more stations that they're not at the same location with. We wanted to accomplish a few things organizationally with our captains that we weren't quite giving them the tools to do that. As you know, the chief in our organization has committed to maintaining coverage in each district, which means in the city of Franklin, we don't allow a district to go without coverage. We don't allow a station to sit empty for a long period of time so we can accommodate training or anything else. We move around and we cover those stations, so there's always, as we put it, water and ALS in that district ready to serve our customers. Because of that, it limits, when our company officers, the captains, are on the apparatus, it limits their mobility to go around and mentor, touch base with, and talk to people that they supervise all the time. So for example, Captain Hill is one of my captains, and he's awesome. He works at Station 1. Captain Hill has 2 companies there with him, and then he's got a company at Station 4, which is in Fieldstone, and a company at Station 8, which is in West Haven. He doesn't typically get a lot of face time with them because he's tied to the engine. He rides on the engine as part of regular staffing. So we wanted to accommodate a few things to bring our span of control back kind of in realm. So for example, on paper, we had our span of control dialed in because those captains were over other officers, but in operational and functionality, we didn't really have that. It was still the battalion chief coordinating with these other officers because we're mobile, right? And we can do all the face-to-face and touch base and all those kinds of things. So this is putting the captains in the cars by themselves, which is the ask, has allowed them to be more mobile and more mentorship, more training with all these officers that they're supervising. So we've really pitched it as we're giving these captains the tool to do the job we're already asking them to do. So administratively, it's brought our span of control way back in. They're now much easier to touch base with those officers. And we've also changed the way that we respond to some calls. So now calls that the battalion chief was making 100% of, these district captains in cars by themselves now make those calls. So they're going out with their single company stations and making calls with them much more often. And it has just allowed us to accomplish many training goals and initiatives on how we operate on scene, much quicker than we were before. Operationally, it has also allowed us to operate as a much more efficient and safer fire department by having these captains in cars by themselves to be district or division bosses. And I'd like to talk to you for just a moment about that. So fire service across the United States has recognized the need for chief level supervision at task level operations, meaning when a company officer is riding the front seat of a fire truck and they get to a house fire, for example, they're going to get off with that firefighter. They're going to make a 360 around that structure to ensure what they're doing is safe, but then they're going to go to pulling hose with that firefighter. They're face down in the smoke, pulling hose, forcing doors, finding people, trying to pull them out. They are in it. They are workers. We're asking that officer to also be the supervision for that crew. When I have a division boss and as a district captain come in to these things with me, I can now put that district captain in front of 2 or 3 of those groups, giving high-level supervision at the task level. So again, for example, the battalion chief, let's talk about Home Depot for just a moment. Battalion chief is going to arrive on scene. They're going to establish command, and then I'm going to start giving orders to 6 to 8 companies doing individual tasks. There may be 3 or 4 jobs going on in the back of Home Depot that I could put one district captain in charge of, and now I'm just talking to that district captain. That person is talking face-to-face with the companies, and the efficiency and the safety and the customer service just goes through the roof when we can allow for that type of supervision. Without the district captains off of the fire truck, we've not been able to do that. I think it's very important that we articulate the ask correctly. Obviously, if they're coming off the fire truck, well, who's in that spot? So we are not asking for any additional staffing. We have organized our structure so that we can reclassify 9 positions spread out across the 3 shifts. Firefighters to lieutenants, they backfill where these captains were. So again, this is no additional staffing. This is just a reclassification of 9 positions within the fire department. A few minutes ago, we talked about the Blue Card command system. A lot of this goes hand in hand, and so by pursuing both initiatives in the last couple of budget years, we've really been able to compound our effectiveness on scene. The Blue Card command structure very much goes into managing span of control by using group supervisors and division bosses in this exact manner. It's becoming industry standard and things that fire departments are chasing all over the Southeast, and we're excited to have a chance to accomplish some of that in your town.
Good afternoon. I don't get to talk about anything near as exciting as that, so just bear with me. So, on our program enhancement, when it comes to personnel, one of the first things that is up here is stipends, and this is something that there's 2 different types. So the top 2, the EMS Leadership Advisory Stipend, which is something that Chief Johnson talked about. This is just a stipend that's they will be paid while they're operating in that function. The same with the FTO stipend. So the FTOs, when we bring on new EMTs or we bring on new firefighters, paramedics that go to school, they were already AMTs, then they come out. In times past, we were having to assign those people to ambulances. So we were losing those personnel at the time while they were doing their EMS competency rides so they could act as a paramedic in the city. Now, with the FTO program, we're allowing them to stay on the truck. We assign them an FTO that rides with them, and then they're making those calls and getting checked off, and we're not losing any personnel during the day. The paramedic stipend increase. So right now, we have 47 paramedics. We have not sent any existing employees to paramedic school over the last 2 years. So we are asking that we take that paramedic stipend that is right now $11,500 and increase it $3,500 to $15,000. And that's going to give us a little bit more of a gap between our AEMT stipend, which is $5,000, just to encourage. And we've done some surveys recently, and the stipend, just the money difference, was one of the biggest reasons why some of our personnel weren't going to take that next step. So this last one with the big magic number at the bottom, we'll go into. So we split these stipends up in 2 different categories. So we have a technical, which would be car seat tech, drone pilots, and the peer support team. And those are all the technical. Those would be paid because those people are on call 24 hours or expected while they're on duty to meet those calls and demands. And then we have an operational level. So much in line with PD, Swiftwater, SWAT, that type of stipend would be Swiftwater, urban search and rescue, which is building collapse, rope rescue, those types of things, fire investigator, and hazmat. So right now, with these 2 with this operational specialty stipend, we are basically, all of our personnel, and I think we have 65 Swiftwater techs, we have somewhere around 50 people that are USAR techs. We have over 50 hazmat techs. All of these individuals are just performing these functions for the love of the job. And it's $2 max increase. So a $2 max increase on any of these. So if they were a car seat tech, a drone pilot, peer support member, USAR, hazmat, rope rescue, Swiftwater, they would still only get a $2 increase, max. And we're just trying to help incentivize all the extra hours that these individuals are doing. So, training instructor, coordinator. So as you know, with the interns, with the way that we have hired in the last 20 years, since we've gotten the Recruit Academy, we have trained our own people. We've gone from an 8-week program to a 16-week program to now almost a 20-week training program. When these individuals come out, they are firefighter 2. They are absolutely ready to go to work just independently with the fire department. This last year, we brought 2 people down to help oversee the intern class and then the recruit class that we had. And that was at a cost at the bottom of $82,000. That covers backfill of those positions, their salaries, all of that. So what we're asking for is a additional instructor coordinator that will work when we have a recruit class, that person will replace those 2 people that come down to run that class. And then the rest of the year, we also have EMS, hazmat, all the technical rescue, fire classes. They will just work seamlessly with the training division. Chief Johnson was one of the first 2 captains that was assigned to the training division in '06. We had 2 people in training in '06. We have 2 people in training in 2026, and not near as good looking as him. So.
They're training a lot more people.
That's right.
They're not mesmerized. So, then on to the next. Maybe. Thank you, sir. And then one of our additional ask is for a SCBA manager. So our SCBA, or our self-contained breathing apparatus, that's what we wear into fires, wear into IDLH environments. One of the biggest things that we have identified as we have started to grow, you're all familiar, or when this happened, we got caught with a upgrade to our breathing apparatus. We did not know that it was coming. We had bought we had gone from a different SCBA to a newer, updated SCBA. And then in the meantime, they had made some small tweaks to that SCBA. Well, we can't just have 12 that are set up one way and, 140 that are a different way. So we kind of got caught off guard on that. With this position, they will be able to maintain, keep us in compliance, do all of our yearly maintenance, handle all the upkeep, keep us ahead. And this is one of those things, if for some reason we have a line of duty death, one of the first things that they come in and look at is our SCBA records. When was it tested? When was the air changed? So all of these different things. And right now, much like the stipend, we're relying on people on shift to help maintain this program. It is a monster of a thing. And really, outside of our apparatus and our stations, this is the most expensive piece of equipment that we have to maintain just daily. We're averaging, time-wise, just to keep our head above water, about 20 hours a week when those guys are available. If we were to outsource this, it would cost us about $165 an hour just to work on one pack. The upside to having us internal is as we have some of these, say, a major part goes out and it's not cost effective to replace that part, with our internal, the guys that are working on it now, they'll break that air pack down to usable parts, and then we're just kind of salvaging as we go along. So if we were to have to outsource this, obviously the cost would go up past that again. So.
Good afternoon again. I want to talk briefly about two asks related to fire prevention. Really, it's one new position that we talked about for plan review. And so having an additional plan reviewer builds in that additional capacity that we believe that we need based on the demand. I probably didn't make the point clearly enough that we didn't have a huge amount of growth of the plan reviews year over year, but the year before, we had 33% increase in growth from 24. And so we feel like we're just plateauing, and it's just a constant amount of new development coming to the city, which ends up in the form of the DRT projects that we see, whether it's phone calls from developers, whether it's the pre-application meetings, whether it's all of that site plan approval that goes through planning commission, and then ultimately in the form of some form of construction document to get permitted before we get through that. And so it is in the critical path of development. We feel like this is the best way to accomplish this. It'll generate better reviews, more timely reviews, better customer service, and hopefully at the end of the day, a safer and better product for all of us. So that's the primary ask. The secondary one that's on this page is much less than that, and I hesitate to even use the word intern with this because it's not a firefighter intern that Chief Johnson's spoken of, but it is an opportunity more like a management fellow type position in the fire service, is that we could there's so many talented people in our community, and identifying those that may not want to be a firefighter, but also want to participate and help us with our special projects, help provide additional support, whether it's in the field for inspections or even doing plan review. Those are all things that we can have a person like that do. So that's the request. Thank you very much.
All right, this is one slide I really don't want to have to discuss. We have two of our key players on our team that are very vital to holding us together that are contemplating retirement.
Who?
Miss Joanne Finn and our office manager, Beth Reeser. They're looking at how they can go on to their next chapter in their life. And we're hoping we can keep them around for a little bit longer, but we know that at some point, they're ready to go off and do other things. And we fully support that. They've worked hard for us. And in doing so, having that loss of two at the same time, we are wanting to bring somebody in for about 6 months prior to the or after they announce, or when they announce their retirement date, so that they can learn the format and basically work alongside them, learn guiding principles. And so they'll never be replaced, but they will have somebody that will get some of that historical knowledge. So we're asking for that as far as, hopefully I'm sitting here again next year asking you for this. Hopefully I can talk them in both in the stand a little longer, but I don't know.
I'll add on this just a little bit. First of all, I've researched it. Is there a possible city administrator veto for these type of things? And there is not. We can't force Joanne or Beth to stay as much as we'd like. And Chief, I'm glad he's sharing it with you. This is framed as an enhancement, but quite frankly, it's something you all have given me authority to do in terms of overhire when we have transitions. You may remember we did it with our finance director position when Margaret transitioned to that. We overfilled that for a significant period of time as it was transitioning between Mike Lowe and Margaret. And we've done it other places. So you're probably just going to have it folded into the budget as we do it because it's a reality. As soon as we know that that's for sure what it's going to happen and the exact timing that makes sense, we'll calculate those numbers. And those numbers are probably pretty accurate. But just want to let you know that it's those decisions are made by those individual employees, then we have a responsibility to respond to it and do it the right way. And I really appreciate the authority you've given me to do these overfills so that we can manage transitions for key positions like this. The other place we use them is when we go through recruitments for our firefighters and police officers, that when we're making that extraordinary effort, we go ahead and do up to 5 overfills so that it helps us make the most of that process. We know that's a large enough role, and just the math of that, you're going to have some turnover over time, that it's good to have those folks ready and not have to be short of folks. So that authority helps us manage this, and we'll do it as part of really more part of the base budget, because we know it's going to happen, unfortunately.
And I can't thank Joanne and Beth enough. They've created a great succession plan. Joanne has gone ahead and built out 3 to 4 years of budget, so when the next person walks in, they're going to have something, a template to go by. Beth has basically come up with a guide for every process that we do within the city. So when somebody comes in and they've got a question, she's made this book to where that person can go to a reference and then figure out what that process is and how to do it. And so I'm very grateful for both these ladies and what they've done to ensure, that we move on after they retire. So thank you.
A few things we've lumped into this next slide. I'll just speak about the first one. Blue Card training. Again, that's a B-Shifter product. This $10,000 price tag here brings a workshop to our town. They offer several. The one that we've eyed in on is called their Big Box Workshop. So very much think of Kroger, Target, Home Depot, big open spaces, things like that. But you get a lot of commercial occupancy firefighter training in that. What is so advantageous for us with the Big Box Workshop is the town that we serve in has had such a robust codes enforcement practice for so long that we have so many protected buildings. And that is great for our citizens and it's great for firefighters, but it does propose challenge for the fire department to consistently train on these fire protection systems. There are certain ways that we want to operate to help our citizens and certain ways we want to operate to keep ourselves safe. So that $10,000 price tag there sends 20 of our officers. Across town, you have 27 lieutenants. We're asking for 6 more. That makes 33. You have 9 captains and 3 battalion chiefs. So let's say around 50. This trains almost half of them in a consistent way to work in commercial occupancies. We would then turn around and institute a commercial or big box standard operating guideline when you go through this class. And so again, we'll all be working in these occupancies much more consistent. And it's just a lot of bang for your buck as far as teaching officer development for our officers.
So as we work down the list, the next is a trench rescue in-house training. And this is now basically the industry standard for trench rescue. If you look across the street from the existing city hall or even the new city hall, we have these popping up all over. This is going to train 24 people. It's a 50-hour class, and it's going to bring our USAR trench techs to the absolute pinnacle of that trench response training. The R1 series connector boat, and this is an expansion of what we're already doing with our Swiftwater. This is going to be a hard bottom boat. We can operate it in still floodwater. It's just wider, safer for our guys when we have, floods in the city where we're not dealing with fast moving water. The Lexipol service for SOGs. So this is something that we've talked about the last 2 or 3 years. Lexipol is a nationwide company that goes in and pulls state laws. They have attorneys, and then they look at, what was the term? Legally defensible, industry standard SOGs that match up with our state laws. So it's not us coming up with these, having one of our, well, Daniel right now, who does all our SOGs, and then having to forward these and having a whole lot of back and forth. They constantly update these. They're constantly looking at what we're doing, how we're doing things. And it's going to take a lot of burden off our individuals right now that are working on this outside of their regular jobs. And then the air compressor, we're looking to replace our SCBA, or breathing air compressor, at Station 5. It's almost as old as I am. It has almost zero electronic parts other than the plug that fires the motor. We had a service done on it about 6 months ago, and the guy said that basically this was going to be his last time to come and look at it. So that's kind of where we are with that one. So on our general fund capital vehicle, this is to replace two units that we have now, replacing Air 7. That is a 2005 mobile fill station that we have. We're looking to re-chassis the existing box on that truck, and that's going to cover the chassis, replacing the box, updating the lighting, and doing any work that needs to be done on that. The replacing of Brush 2, which is a 2002. And this is just trying to get our fleet a little more updated and a little more reliable. And we've had some issues with these two trucks specifically. And if you'd like, I can get with Kim and pull those maintenance numbers, but we're pushing the end of life on a 20-year truck. And then the last is a facilities tax ask, and this is for a new tower company at Station 7, which is at Goose Creek. Sorry.
All right, so in the fire service, shift schedules are ever changing. And we're noticing several different formats out there in the industry, and some of them, there may be a couple of departments in Tennessee, but most of them are departments that are states that border us or in proximity to us. So before we wrap up, I want to bring this up just as a conversation piece, that we're going to have to make adjustments at some point down the road. And this gives us an opportunity to begin that conversation now, and so that we can select the best way to move about and move forward. So I want to talk about the work week structure and overtime alignment. Since these ideas have been raised in prior conversations, both internal to the city and in the industry itself, we felt it was appropriate to provide you with context and shared understanding. There are two related but distinct considerations. First involves work week structure for purposes of overtime calculation. When we refer to a 40 or 53-hour work week, we're discussing alignment with the city's standard 7-day overtime structure. Under this model, overtime would be calculated in the same manner as other city employees. This approach also provides flexibility by allowing fire personnel to take leave within a cycle or pay cycle without automatically affecting overtime eligibility. The second consideration involves shift configuration models. We are currently under the 24-48 model, and we are on a 28-day cycle. Another model out there is 24-72. We've noticed a lot of our EMS agencies going to the 24-72, which has also affected our ability to recruit and retain, in some instances, paramedics. This 24-72 would require a fourth shift at a pretty steep financial impact. And the other one out there is a 48-96, which it would have some impact as well. But when we start looking at this, the 40-hour work week we could do for substantially less. And we're invested in our people. We're not having to go out and create another shift. We're invested in the talent that we have. And like I said, we just wanted to bring this topic up. I'm sure we're going to be bringing this up year after year. But at least we can start that conversation now to ensure that we develop a pathway that's going to be, beneficial to the fire department, to the city, and to the citizens and community that we serve.
Let me chime in on this a little bit too, and appreciate Chief walking you through this. This is a longer-term discussion, has real implications for how we serve. And I'll say what I've said the last couple of years. I've gone to a lot of Friday morning breakfasts in the fire stations to just connect with our team, have discussions, and schedule has been a common topic. And I'll say to you tonight what I've said to the team in that discussion. And I look at three pretty foundational things when we have this discussion. It's around the service impact to the community. It's around the impact on our people, like how it supports and serves them well in doing what can be a very challenging job. And then, of course, the financial impact. How do we support that? How does that fit into budgets and tax rates and the other things that we have to balance and make work to serve the community well? So that's the framework that we would look and think about all of these. I want to stress we are always following fair labor standards, guidelines on how we do and what we do, and that's going to be factored in as well as how do we do this, what does it look like? There's another argument around how it impacts and is consistent with how other folks work. But of course, fire is a unique work schedule, work environment, and just the way it's organized and functions is just different than different parts of our organization. So how do we factor all that in? So it will be something we want to proceed with very thoughtfully and considering those factors that I talked about: service impact, impact on our team, and the financial realities of whatever the options are that we look at. So this is not something we're going to do quickly. We're also going to be aware of what else is out there in the market and how that's affecting our ability to attract and retain the best talent. We've continued to be very strong, and when we put opportunities out there, we get a very strong response in terms of people that want to work and serve here. But we want to stay at that very top echelon, and how we pay people and the schedules they work are an important factor in that. So it's going to be an important task in the time ahead, and in this fiscal year, it'll be a big part of the work plan that we'll all be working into, and just wanted to share that perspective with you.
Any additional sharing? Matt?
Oh, well, I think I got one more thing, but we can discuss this.
Well,
Yeah.
I was just gonna, if we had any comments on this particular, the schedule. Yeah.
Well, on this one right here, I thought it was interesting you brought up, because I actually had a question on this piece. Yesterday when we met the kids from Von Soden,
Right.
it was really interesting that she talked about her view of a fire, the fire department, firefighters is from the movies, they're upstairs sleeping and they slide down a pole and they run out and they put out a fire and they come back and they go back to bed. And I thought that was really funny, because that's not firefighters anymore, and 50% of your calls are medical calls. And so I've written down when you said, that over half of them are medical calls, how does that change your hours and your trends? And then, here you are talking about, the different way of looking at it. I would just say, Franklin's always been sort of at the leading edge of sort of looking at different things. I'd be curious, I don't know that we have to eat the whale one bite at a time. I would be really curious. I wonder if there was a way to look at a station or look at a shift. Is there a way for us to look at trying to see could we see what it would look like for us to try an area? I don't know, Eric. I think there are changes in the way that firefighters are serving our community anymore. I think it's just different. And I would be really curious what good looks like anymore, and how we could take a baby step towards that, instead of trying to figure out how we change the entire department, how we move an entire group of people, and the expense behind that. What does good look like? I don't know. I'd be curious to see what baby step would look like. what eating the whale one bite at a time might look like.
I think it's a great question. I don't know that we have an answer for that specifically, because there is so much interrelationship between how we staff and operate, but there may be some ways to consider some things that, I'm open to look at that.
I mean, I'm glad we're not accounting after all of a sudden fund an entire department.
Right. Well, I appreciate the recognition. We're more than just a fire department. We're all hazards now. So, and I appreciate you recognizing that and the dedication that the men and women, that serve here, they serve proudly. And I just think that at some point, we're going to see a change in the fire service. So we're trying to forecast of what are we going to do. So if we start smart planning now, that will cause us not to have a reaction in the future.
Appreciate the presentation, you and your colleagues there, Chief. And to echo a little bit of what Alderman Brown has talked about, 67% of your calls are medical calls. And when I've been to the firehouse to sit with the guys, unfortunately, most of them don't finish the meal.
That's right.
Because the bell rings and they get up and they go, and I feel bad, but I do eat the steak. I think that, Eric, to echo your 3 areas of focus: service to the city, protecting the health, safety, and welfare of the folks who are serving, and then thirdly, the economic impact. I'd add the 2, and I think you got there in your comments, is our ability to lead and recruit. And it wasn't that long ago that we had a deficit of number of men and women that were serving in our fire department. And I would hate to see that happen again because of a significant, quality of life work week experience that's happening around us, maybe not in Williamson County and maybe not even in Tennessee, but just this past week, I was on the internet wasting time, and I saw conversations from firefighters that were outside of the state of Tennessee, and they were wanting to come into Williamson County, in particular, come into Franklin, and they were asking questions about what's the work-life balance like, what does the work week look like? And these are things that are top of mind to the people that are the best and the brightest in your field, and we want to make sure that we're leading there like we do in so many other areas. Not that we're not currently, but if a significant shift happens, maybe not at the national level, but maybe at the state level or the competitive level, I want to make sure that we've done the homework so we have an understanding of what the 40 or the 53-hour work week will do to our departments. Because one of those looks like it would ask you to put a whole new shift of
Yes.
people on. And we talk about a deficit of firefighters, hiring a whole new shift would really put a strain on us. So kudos to you and the team in being kind of bringing this up. I'd want to see what the undertones, and I'd ask you guys to do the work to understand what the undertones or the currents are that we think might be happening and might be becoming more standard, and make sure that you bring that back to us to help us make an educated decision on how we can best serve and protect those 3 things, and most importantly, in my mind, the ability to lead and to recruit the future. Because apparently, based on your sharing today, firefighters retire in bunches. I also want to take just a minute to share your accolades of the 2 folks that are working in your team. And it would be a shame if one of those books that they made that's going to be so helpful burned up and they'd have to stay around.
Right.
A little bit longer.
Note taken.
Yeah. Thank you, that's fine.
Any other questions or comments? Chief, next slide.
All right. So as we talk about the future, this is, I'm sorry.
Mayor, you have, I'm sorry.
I'm gonna wait till he's over, and then I've got.
Okay.
So as we keep talking about the future, we always talk about the Berry Farms and Tower 7, and I think the build is 24 months to 36 months-ish. So we're always wanting to keep that on the radar, and we're making sure that we're watching the growth there as far as the number of calls and whatnot. So we're continuing to evaluate that, but when we do pull the trigger and get the Tower 7, we'll need 12 additional staff. So we wanted to put that on your radar. I know we've talked about several potential annexation plans, and one of them does involve a new fire station. I think we've pretty much got it worked out that we get the land donated, but that will require, 12 operational staff as well as a new apparatus. And just to kind of keep in line with our EMS, we're continuing to answer more calls. We're having, 2.5% to 3% growth in calls a year. is expanding our EMS division to keep up with the rapid growth. But in closing, I just want to say thank you to each and every one of you, and especially to our city leadership and the members of our community that support us every day. I can't say enough about the men and women of the department and how dedicated they are to serve this community. But we could not do what we did if we did not have the support of you, our city leadership, and the members of our community. So thank you.
Mayor?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. First of all, I really feel like I've been in a fire because these slides make me feel hot. Read in there, so I compliment you on that, Chief.
Well, that's some of our subliminal marketing strategy.
And, you know, I just swung so far in wanting to support the fire department today based on that fire that's coming after me.
Great job.
Kudos on suicide recognition among firemen, and Emily Nelms is, you know, Find Hope Franklin helped train her in QPR, question, persuade, refer, and eager to make sure that everybody has that opportunity. And as a sidebar, I'd love to see, as you're doing CPR, try to incorporate somehow or other QPR for the community moving forward. I did have one question, which was about the fees for plan inspection and on-site inspection. I'm not familiar with the fees there, but curious about what those fees might be, and is that another revenue source that we could look at that maybe needs to be increased to help?
I'm going to invite Chief King up to discuss this. We have talked internally about having fees with certain inspections, but I don't think we have enough of them where it's really going to make a difference. And the fees that we do charge now are so small. I'll let him elaborate on that.
Well, I'm probably going to defer to either Eric or Walter, who are in the room, because the fire department inspections really are part of the bigger overall development umbrella. And so we've specifically enjoyed that Building and Neighborhood Services collect all of those fees. And I think it's a much broader topic of how the city has elected to encourage development and process that and what we support. So
it's a good preview, because when Building and Neighborhood Services comes to see you, there'll be some discussion, because it's a relatively low fee. Residential especially, it's a fairly low base fee, and then it escalates a little bit based on the size and nature of the investment itself. And it has not been adjusted for some time, so that will be something we'll share with you to look at and to consider. I don't have the exact numbers, we just went over it earlier this week, but when they come in March, you will hear some discussion around that structure and some ideas and alternatives. The other element there that we have had the authority to do that we have not done is re-inspection that happens. So when somebody comes through and we look at things and then we know we have to come back because it's not quite right, we have the ability to charge for those re-inspections, but we have not done it. So that would be a little bit of a change. Even though we've had authority for some time, we have not done it. For the development community, that would be new. And we want to, if we go down that path, want to do a little more education, a little more easing into that if we're going to change that structure, that dynamic. But it has both the impact on, yes, it can enhance revenue, but we also hope it enhances the quality of reinspection or resubmittals on the permit side that we see. So we're looking at that and want to try to be thoughtful on how we apply those and continue to encourage folks to work with us and get good information and submit good plans, ask for inspections at the right time so that we can do those effectively and efficiently as well. Michael was part of those, Walter's here as well. I don't know if there's anything else you'll want to add to any of that discussion.
Just that this will be a subject that we can go a little bit more in depth in 3 weeks when Community and Economic Development departments come and present in front of you. The numbers that we've looked at certainly would generate more, but it is a shift of policy and I would say relations if you go the full amount and you start implementing fees that have never been there before in certain aspects. In addition to fees that quite honestly do need to be looked at and adjusted.
One of the things we talked about that we'll try to show you in 3 weeks is maybe a little more of a direct connection of what's it costing us to provide those services versus what we're actually charging. Spoiler alert, there's a difference. But, how much we want to bridge that is going to be part of the policy question for you all.
Yes.
Well, that was going to be probably going to be tied into that, because my question for you, Andy, was going to be, do you know how many touch points on a new plan, how many touch points do you have between site visits, meetings, plan review? I don't know if it's hours, I don't know if it's touch points, but that would be, and maybe you don't have the answer today, maybe it's something, but that would be an interesting number, because I think relative to more personnel or fees and whatever, I would love to know that number at some point.
I don't know that we track it that specifically, but it would be a good exercise for a few of those projects, especially the ones that take longer. The interesting part, though, I think, is that with our electronic plan review is that you get it, you look at it, you provide comments electronically, they start replying back in, and so you don't have that delay in coming in and sitting in a queue. It's a digital queue, and so we're continuously moving and working on that. The bigger delay potentially on reinspection is, you're right, if we're having a drive from City Hall to Cool Springs and back for a minor issue, there's very much a loss of productivity there, depending on what you're looking at. And so we, right now, try to authorize the inspectors to coordinate that work, to make multiple stops on one route, even if that delays the inspection a little bit, because we want to get it all done at one time. And then we're still carrying over some of the COVID principles of, if it's something minor, let's take a picture of it. There's other ways to do it without putting your eyes on something relatively minor. So we're still trying to be very smart and efficient.
More questions?
Yeah, going back to slide 44, the various stipends, there was something that was said, and maybe I misunderstood it. These stipends are because they have extra training expertise that you have to call upon. And somewhere in there I heard extra hours. Is extra hours built into these numbers that you're giving us, or is that just, here's their time that they're working and they have this expertise, and whatever happens that their expertise is necessary and they're there?
Not so much extra hours as in work, but so in our yearly requirements for the fire department, a firefighter is supposed to get 192 hours for ISO. He's supposed to get 192 hours of general training. Then he gets 16 hours of facilities training. So that's training that takes place, that is fire-based training at the training ground. So moving past that with these particular people, and we'll use Swiftwater for an example. We're an accredited state agency for response. So they have to do a swim test every year. And then they have yearly checkoffs that they have to do that to help meet those requirements to help us stay accredited. USAR is the same way, and I'm a little more versed with that one. So they have to do, every 2 years, they have to do breaching and breaking of concrete. Every 2 years, they have to cut metal. Every 2 years. So there's a lot of past that 192 hours that's expected from just their fire job, which equates to about 2 hours a shift of training for just the fire department. That doesn't take into account medical training. So we add that on top, and then we add hazmat training. They're required to get 24 hours every 2 years. So all of this starts to accumulate, and we're trying to find a way to incentivize this for the work that they're doing. Does that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And
Well, I
when,
appreciate how much firemen train. I understand that, and we appreciate your skills that you have and how you're honing those skills, and We appreciate when you have to use them, how professional you are, so thank you.
I would just, when Chief Pardue was talking about $2, he's talking about $2 an hour.
Yes.
So it's just layered onto their rate to provide for whatever certification we're acknowledging. So we do that strategically in some other places in the organization. There's always a question around what is part of the job baseline and what is part of something above and beyond that we want to recognize through a stipend or some other structure in the way we do pay. So that's what's being put on the table by the department to consider.
Any other questions?
If I,
Go right ahead.
well, I won't even finish it. I was going to say I'll be quick, but that's usually the worst thing I can say. Yeah, the worst thing I can say. I'm not going to say that. So essentially, these are already skills and services that these individuals have, and we're looking to acknowledge them and to incentivize others to jump in and get them in order to make sure that we're properly staffed and we have people that are chasing these dreams. I think that's an interesting thing for us to look at because like a lot of the first responders, you don't really appreciate needing them until you need them, and then it's usually too late to go back and start that training. The other question I had was around the equipment that you talked about. What was it? I had it here. The Air 7 brush truck and Tower 7. We talked about the length of order to ship on these types of apparatus. What's the expected, like, when do we need them and when do we need to order them would be helpful as we continue the budget discussion.
So
There you go.
Kim, myself, Margaret, and Christine all met probably about 6 months ago. We outlined a replacement plan for all of our apparatus. So with the general obligation bonds, with the facilities tax, identifying all those things, how long we can expect those trucks to last in frontline service, how long we can expect for them to last in reserve service. So right now, we have 6 reserves. With the way that some of the trucks have the way that we have replaced some of the trucks in the past, and believe me, I applaud Christine and her staff for applying the general obligations bonds for replacement of the fire apparatus, because that has really helped us kind of get ahead of the curve. Fire apparatus, unfortunately, are kind of going the same way as, your washer and dryer. We're not seeing the years of service that we got out of some of our old ones. And a lot of it is industry requirements, electronics, all these different things. And I'll use one example. We have a 2002 tower that we bought many years ago when the Snorkel was wrecked. We did an emergency purchase. We got this truck. That truck was set to be sold in probably 2018. Well, we didn't replace Tower 1 and Tower 2 until 2019. So we had already almost pushed that. We're wanting to stay 12 to 15 years on ladder trucks, wanting to stay 10 years on engines. That'll give us 5 to 6 years of reserve life, and then we can kind of rotate through that. Because one of our towers that was set to be our reserve, it was a 2006, it was bought when Station 6 was built. Because that truck was in such poor shape, when we get ready to start looking to replace Tower 1 and Tower 2 in 2030, 2031, our reserve tower is going to be 30 years old. So we kind of had a lull in how we had replaced trucks, so it kind of pushed us a little bit longer than we wanted. So we have a replacement schedule feasibly with the air truck. It was a truck that was kind of on call. We upstaffed a station for that truck to respond. With the way that we've moved people around and kind of adjusted, that truck is always staffed now. So that truck is running more. It's a 2005, and it's had better days. So we're to the point where On engines, trucks, rescues, we're pretty good. With the brush truck stuff that aren't staffed daily, don't make a lot of runs, we can get a longer life expectancy, but we're starting to push kind of that edge on the 15 to 20-year mark.
So if you ordered it tomorrow,
Air truck, probably 4 to 6 months because there's no pump. It's a little bit easier to do. A brush truck, honestly, we could probably get in 6 weeks.
okay. Very good context. I was thinking we were talking years.
Not on engines, or not like engines and towers.
Okay, thank you.
May I, Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I just wanted to share that certainly finance and the fire department and Kim Hammond with our fleet, we do have a really good working relationship. And yes, Kim Hammond from our streets gave a advisement, very timely advisement of her, just what she sees now, how long these apparatus should be in frontline service, and gave us advisement at a really good time, because certainly we know that we'll keep those in frontline service as long as, especially her advisement or whoever, that's very important on how long they can be maintained well. But we did shorten the amortization for apparatus in this new bond issue that we're going to be selling at the end of the month. We did reduce that from 15 years to 10 years. And then certainly that when that day comes, then the fleet supervisor will say how long it should be in front line. But we've been very careful with that amortization. And these three pieces that the chief was describing should be arriving by the end of 2027. The board authorized those to be ordered in December of 2024. So we've known those plans, and they just take a while, but it's a little shorter than it was a few years back. It took about 4 to 5 years for a while, and with the permission the board gave to order in December of 2024, we're on schedule to have those by the end of 2027. And those are the three pieces that are in the bond issue for this month. So they fit perfectly within the time that we're allowed to spend those proceeds. So we do appreciate the communication that we have, and it really does help us plan to make sure that we spend our bond proceeds in according with the rules that we have.
Michael?
I also want to add that, we look as cohesively and comprehensively as we can on how to fund city operations. The facilities tax we are allowed to use it for any purpose that is expansion-related, growth-related, in fire, police, sanitation, and parks. So that could be capital, or it can be operational. But the key thing is, if it's a new piece, you can use it. If it's a replacement, it falls back upon the general fund. Now, whether that's general fund cash or general obligation bonds, that doesn't matter. So it has allowed us to keep up with growth. But when it's time to replace that brush truck, which I think we actually bought with facilities tax in the first place, then it's something that falls to the general fund to replace.
Any other questions or comments? Matt?
We respond to calls in the county?
Yes. No, we have, we have two type of responses to the county. One is an automatic aid agreement that we have with Brentwood, and then they reciprocate. They also automatic aid with us. And then in the county, we have an automatic aid agreement on the I-65 corridor down from Goose Creek to 840. Because a lot of those calls that come in, they're people and motorists, and so 911 doesn't really know if they're in the city or in the county. We have that station there, so we're able to get on it real quick instead of having to rely on volunteer response. But probably most of our mutual aid is what we do. Whenever the county encounters a situation where they need our assistance, they'll ask for a mutual aid request, and then we'll send a company based on what their need is at that time. I'd have to go back and look. I can definitely pull numbers year over year of the number of mutual aid responses that we've had, and I can report back on that.
Just to kind of differentiate, automatic aid happens directly through dispatch.
Correct, through
It's anticipated
dispatch.
and it gets dispatched immediately with the call, depending on what's needed, the resources that are needed. Mutual aid is not as automatic.
Right.
But it happens, and we certainly do, it happens on a somewhat regular basis. We do them every year in terms of response to the county. There was a fire during the
During,
the
Temple
winter
Hills.
weather event that we helped respond to, that our folks played a significant role in that response. And that happens, I would say, on a regular basis. I don't know about trend. That would be something we need to dig into.
Yeah, I can definitely go back. That's things that we track through our records management system, so I can probably give you a 3 to 5 year average.
And as we should help, but certainly the county has grown like crazy. It's raw. I wonder if they consider the cost of our resources to do so, and so I would be curious, I'd be curious how that number has grown and how it's taxpayer resources to continue to assist them in the county.
Okay, our fire data analyst is watching at home and just informed us that we have ran 2 mutual aid fires since the beginning of the year. But I will get you a more comprehensive report, and he may have it done. Yeah, and he'll probably have it done before we get out of here.
Any other questions or comments? Any report? Any report? All right,
That will be next week. We'll keep you in suspense, Mr. Chairman.
okay, all right. If there are no other questions or comments, go ahead, Michael.
Just a reminder that you'll be back here at 3 PM next week
All right.
for the next 2 program areas, governance and management and finance and administration. So 3 PM, February 19th, same bat time, same bat channel.
February the 19th, 3 PM. If there's no other questions or comments, then I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Proper motion second, all in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, we are adjourned.